Hello, lovely listeners. I'm Julia, who will help you relax and fall asleep tonight. What time is it for you right now? And do you have a cozy drink or snack that helps you relax before bed? Let me know in the comments. The winter wind whispered through the narrow alleys of the ancient castle as heavy snowflakes danced in silent choreography outside the open window of the royal chamber. Queen Eleanor sat by the ledge, her delicate fingers deftly guiding the fine needle through rich crimson velvet. The room glowed softly from the light of tallow candles, and the pallid shimmer of moonlight was mingled with the snow's own glisten on the black stone windowsill. As she worked on the garment destined for the upcoming winter ball, her thoughts wandered like the drifting snow outside. In her careful concentration, a sudden prick from the needle pierced her tender finger, sending a momentary sting through her hand. She looked at the delicate drop of bright red blood emerging, splitting into 3 perfect droplets as they descended onto the freshly fallen snow that lay like a thin, immaculate blanket on the windowsill. Gazing upon the red stains amidst the pristine white, the queen murmured softly to herself, "How I wish that I had a daughter who had skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony." In that moment, her heart brimmed with the hope of a future filled with love and beauty, a beauty that would shine brighter than the winter frost outside. Days turned into weeks, and the chill of winter slowly gave way to the promise of spring. In time, the queen's gentle life reached its quiet end during the miracle of childbirth. With a bittersweet smile and trembling hands, the royal midwives cradled the newborn girl. Named Snow White, the infant possessed all the qualities the queen had longed for, from the flawless porcelain complexion that resembled freshly fallen snow to the rosy bloom of her lips, reminiscent of the deepest scarlet. The quiet room was filled with both mourning and hope, as the court whispered of the child who was destined to bring light and beauty into the kingdom, even as the beloved queen departed from the world. A year passed in the kingdom, bringing relief and renewal, yet also new challenges. Snow White's father, the noble king, found solace in the continuity of the realm and soon remarried, seeking a love that would secure the future of the crown. His bride was a woman of striking beauty, whose mesmerizing features captured the admiration of all who beheld her. However, beneath her enchanting exterior lay a heart consumed by vanity and cruelty. This new queen was not only breathtaking, but also dabbled in the dark arts of witchcraft, a secret art she guarded fiercely. Among her most prized possessions was a magic mirror, an ancient relic that could speak the unvarnished truth. Each morning, with a voice as crisp as the winter air, she would consult the mirror, asking, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" The mirror, bound by its nature to honesty, invariably replied that she was the fairest in the land, a truth that filled the queen with both pride and a dangerous satisfaction. In a few short years, the kingdom marveled at the blossoming beauty of Snow White. Now 7 years old, she possessed an almost otherworldly radiance, her skin as flawless as untouched snow, and her lips as delicately tinted as the petals of a red rose, outshone the beauty of her stepmother. Whispers echoed through the castle halls, and even the bravest of courtiers found themselves pausing in awe at the sight of the young princess. Driven by her unyielding vanity, the queen consulted her magic mirror once more, asking in the same measured tone, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" The mirror, dutiful in its proclamation, spoke the truth that pierced the queen's heart. It declared that Snow White now possessed a beauty that eclipsed all others in the realm. In that instant, envy and malice took root within the queen, and a dark resolve began to form. Consumed by the bitter taste of jealousy, the queen devised a plan to rid herself of the child who threatened her vanity. In a cold and heartless decision, she summoned the kingdom's most trusted huntsman and commanded him, in a voice devoid of remorse, to lead Snow White deep into the forest and to end her life. The order was cruel and unthinkable: to sever the bond of the innocent with a single stroke, and to claim as proof of his deed the organs of Snow White, that he might bring them back to the queen as a grotesque token of his success. Hearing the decree, the huntsman's heart wavered with inner turmoil. The path laid out before him was stained with cruelty, yet he feared the wrath of the queen if he did not obey. With a heavy soul, he accepted the grim task, and with the princess by his side, he ventured into the shadowy depths of the ancient forest, where daylight scarcely penetrated, and the quiet murmur of the trees spoke of times long past. As the forest swallowed them in its deep and mystical embrace, Snow White's wide, frightened eyes filled with tears. The princess, unaware of the full extent of the dark plan, pleaded with the huntsman in a trembling voice, "Please, spare me this mockery of justice. I will run away into the depths of the forest and never return to your cold castle again." Her voice, raw with terror and sorrow, struck a chord in the man's mustached heart. Confronted with the innocence and desperate hope shimmering in her eyes, the huntsman faltered, his resolve crumbling beneath the weight of compassion. In that pained moment, he lowered his dagger and made a fateful decision. Rather than carry out the cruel command, he whispered an apology to her quivering soul, assuring her softly that she had been spared. To deceive the queen, he collected the organs of a wild boar as a substitute and handed them over as dreadful proof, all while promising himself that the young princess's life would be preserved. Wandering through the dense forest for hours, Snow White found herself surrounded by towering pines and the hushed whispers of wildlife. Her small feet, predisposed for gentle steps, led her along a narrow path until she stumbled upon a peculiar sight: a tiny cottage crafted to shelter the smallest of inhabitants. The humble abode seemed to whisper secrets of a life filled with camaraderie and simplicity. With an air of cautious curiosity, the princess stepped closer and entered through an unlatched door. Inside, she discovered little tables set with delicate meals and tiny chairs arranged neatly as if in anticipation of a feast. The aroma of freshly baked bread mingled with the lingering scent of wood smoke, and a modest supply of wine sparkled in small bottles. Overcome by exhaustion, She tasted a morsel of the food and sipped some of the wine. The coziness of the space beckoned her, and after testing several miniature beds, she found one that whispered promises of comfort. With her eyes closing in relief, Snow White soon fell into a deep sleep on that humble cot. The day waned as the 7 dwarfs, returning from their labors in the mountainous mines, approached their quaint cottage. Their hearts, accustomed to the simple routines of peaceful living, were startled by the way the delicate interiors lay in disarray. Utensils were askew, small trinkets misplaced, and the gentle hum of the homely hearth seemed disturbed. With cautious steps, they climbed the narrow stairs, each step resonating with a sense of alarm. In a dusty, softly lit room upstairs, they discovered a sleeping figure, a young girl whose serene countenance was emblematic of both innocence and quiet fortitude. Startled, they gathered around her, their faces etched with surprise and concern. Awakening with an expression of confusion and vulnerability, Snow White explained, with a quivering voice filled with truth, that her stepmother had sought to end her life and had forced her into the forest. The dwarfs, moved by compassion and the stark unfairness of her fate, decided without delay that she should be taken into their care, offering her both shelter and companionship, on the condition that she help tend their modest home. Under the gentle care of the 7 dwarfs, Snow White's days took on a serene rhythm. Each morning was greeted with the melodious chirping of birds and the soft laughter of the dwarfs as they set off to work in the mines. In the quiet moments between chores, Snow White found solace in tending to the household, her humble hands sweeping away memories of past sorrows. Over time, she blossomed into a lovely and graceful young maiden, her beauty a radiant mix of innocence and strength. The forest around the small cottage seemed to smile upon her, and even nature itself whispered gentle encouragement as wildflowers bloomed near her path and shy animals listened to her soft, kind words. Her laughter filled the corridors of the dwarf's humble abode, and her presence became a beacon of hope and renewal. Far away from the peaceful refuge, the jealous queen remained convinced that Snow White's fate had been sealed. Each morning, she stood before her enchanted mirror, its surface smooth and unyielding like polished obsidian, and repeated the familiar query, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" The mirror's reply, echoing through the lavishly adorned hall, confirmed her continued supremacy until one fateful day. With a voice mixing astonishment and dark satisfaction, the mirror revealed that not only did the child continue to live, but she was flourishing and hidden away with the 7 dwarfs. Rage ignited within the queen's cold heart, and the seeds of further treachery were sown as she resolved that the time had come for her own hand to strike down the princess. Fury and desperation drove the wicked queen to act. She donned disguises with the skill of a seasoned sorceress, determined to finish what fate had not yet allowed her to complete. Her first ploy saw her transform into an aged peddler, her face wrinkled and her voice trembling with feigned frailty. Arriving at the dwarf's quaint cottage, she clutched a beautifully embroidered, colorful silky bodice that she declared to be a token of goodwill. With gentle words and a bow, she offered it to Snow White, speaking softly of traditions lost and fortunes regained. Unaware of the hidden malice behind the gift, Snow White accepted the bodice with a trusting smile. However, as the queen ardently laced the garment around the princess's tender form, the ties tightened to a cruel degree, and Snow White soon felt as if the very air had been squeezed from her. The shock of the pressure sent her into a faint, echoing silence that turned panic into a palpable dread. Hearing a sudden commotion and the soft sound of a collapse, the 7 dwarfs rushed back from the distant mines to their cottage. Their hearts pounded as they discovered Snow White lying still on the floor, the remnants of the bodice's cruel embrace marking the tragic moment of her fall. Without hesitation, the dwarfs circled around her, their eyes brimming with concern and determination. One by one, they untied the wicked bindings, their small, careful hands working together to break the grip of darkness that had almost snuffed out her radiant life. In the midst of the panic, compassionate voices called out gentle words of encouragement. It was as if the very spirit of the cottage awakened, channeling an ancient magic through the tender ministrations of its humble occupants. Gradually, as hope filled the air, Snow White's pallid face regained color, and with persistent care, the dwarfs managed to revive her, their efforts a testament to the power of love and rightful mercy. But the wicked queen's ambition was relentless. Not content with her first failed attempt, she devised another sinister plan. This time, she cloaked herself in the guise of a humble comb seller, her appearance altered by artful makeup and carefully contrived props. She approached the cottage with a smile that failed to reach her eyes, carrying an assortment of combs adorned in intricate designs. In a softly spoken tone laced with false kindness, she extolled the virtues of a particularly exquisite comb, explaining that it was crafted with magic that could enhance any hair's natural shine. Unable to resist the allure of the exquisite gift and unaware of the underlying treachery, Snow White accepted the comb and allowed the disguised queen to gently stroke her long flowing hair. Yet in the brief moments after the touch, a potent poison seeped through the strands into Snow White's delicate skin, weakening her further. The dwarfs, ever vigilant, quickly intervened and removed the cursed comb from her hair, the act of salvation marking another close brush with death for the beloved princess. Undeterred by her previous failures, the malevolent queen now prepared for what she believed would be her final and decisive act. Transforming her appearance once more, she took on the humble guise of a kindly farmer's wife. With her heart cloaked in hidden vile intentions, she sought out Snow White, who was now tending to household chores with quiet vigor. Carrying a basket of freshly gathered fruits, the disguised queen's eyes glinted with malicious purpose. She selected a particularly enticing apple, its skin gleaming with a mix of tempting crimson and an almost otherworldly shine. Knowing full well that this apple was laced with a deadly toxin, she devised a cruel strategy. Before offering it to the unsuspecting princess, she boldly cut the apple in half. With deliberate theatricality, the queen took the white half of the apple and consumed it herself, demonstrating its harmless nature while offering the ruby red half to Snow White. Caught up in the moment and enchanted by its apparent beauty, Snow White accepted the apple with a grateful smile, unaware of the peril hidden within its sweet, deceptive flesh. No sooner had the poisoned apple touched her lips than a shadow of deep slumber overcame Snow White. Her eyes closed as if surrendering to an eternal sleep, and her body collapsed softly onto the cool floor. The charm of life had been masked by the lethal trickery of the queen, and despite the dwarfs' frantic efforts to rouse her, the spell proved unyielding. With hearts heavy and minds shrouded in grief, the 7 dwarfs, now guardians of the princess, made the agonizing decision to place her in a delicate glass casket. Crafted from the finest crystal, it shimmered under the gentle light of the day, a silent tribute to the beauty and purity of Snow White. The dwarfs, with tearful eyes and trembling hands, arranged the casket as though it were a final resting place fit for a cherished soul, and amidst their sorrow, they lamented the loss of one so gentle and kind. In the wake of somber days and the echo of quiet mourning, news of the sleeping princess spread far beyond the hidden corners of the dwarf's cottage. The tale of Snow White, preserved in crystalline beauty, reached the ears of a solitary prince, a wanderer of noble spirit and courageous heart. One crisp morning, as he rode through the verdant forests in search of solace and adventure, the prince's keen eyes caught sight of a curious structure, glimmering softly in a clearing. Approaching with a mixture of wonder and disbelief, he discovered the glass casket that cradled Snow White's still form. Drawn irresistibly by the tragic beauty before him, the prince dismounted his fine steed and knelt beside the casket. The dwarfs, who had guarded the princess with unwavering loyalty, relayed the sorrowful story of her betrayal and untimely fateful sleep. With each word spoken, the prince's heart ached deeper, and an overwhelming desire to restore life to the innocent grew within him. In that frozen moment of tenderness, he vowed to cherish and protect this miraculous soul. After days of sorrowful vigil and silent mourning, the dwarfs, with solemn determination, entrusted Snow White's glass coffin to the prince's care. The journey from the secluded forest to the grand castle of her father was laden with both hope and grief. The prince, cradling the casket as if it were his most precious treasure, led a humble procession along winding roads and through picturesque valleys. All around, the realm prepared for an event that many believed would be the final farewell to a lost princess. As fate would have it, amidst the quiet procession, a moment of unforeseen clumsiness occurred. One of the prince's servants, burdened by fatigue and mishap, stumbled over a protruding stone on the pathway. In that brief moment, the glass casket shifted, and the delicate seal that held the remnants of the enchanted poison began to falter. A small piece of the red apple, lodged quietly in Snow White's throat, was dislodged by the commotion. In an astonishing ripple of magic and fate, the minute fragment stirred within her, and the spell of deep slumber shattered. Snow White's eyes fluttered open, and color returned to her cheeks as she began to awaken from what had seemed an eternal sleep. The prince, witnessing this miraculous revival, was overcome with joy and relief, marveling at the power of love and destiny. In the wake of the miraculous revival, the prince could no longer contain the exuberance of his emotions. With tears of joy glistening in his eyes, he gently lifted Snow White from her glass sanctuary, cradling her in his arms as if she were the long-lost part of his soul. "My dear, you have defied the very grasp of death," he whispered with heartfelt astonishment, his voice echoing the promise of eternal love. Snow White, still weary from her ordeal yet touched by the prince's tenderness, looked up at him with a mixture of gratitude and budding affection. The tender moment blossomed into an unspoken understanding, a silent pact between two hearts that had found renewed life in the midst of despair. The prince uttered vows of everlasting care and love, and in that embrace, the specter of sorrow was driven away by the brightness of hope and the certainty of destiny. In the wake of their newfound joy, preparations for a magnificent wedding commenced at the castle. The prince, overflowing with love and gratitude, extended invitations to every corner of the kingdom, ensuring that nobles and commoners alike would witness the union of two souls destined to heal a broken realm. Grand banners were unfurled, and the aroma of festive delicacies wafted through the great halls. Yet, amidst the jubilant flurry of preparations and the harmonious blend of music and laughter, one face was conspicuously absent from the guest list: the vindictive stepmother, whose presence had long cast a shadow over Snow White's life. Her exclusion was not a mere oversight, but a deliberate act, a safeguard against the possibility of further treachery. As the kingdom buzzed with anticipation for the impending celebration, the prince and Snow White found themselves embraced by the hope of a future unmarred by past sufferings, their hearts intertwined in the promise of a new beginning. Yet far beyond the jubilant celebrations, in the solitude of her grim chamber, the old queen peered once more into her magic mirror. Convinced that the specter of her rival had been banished forever, she posed the familiar question with a voice that trembled with both anticipation and lingering pride. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who now is the fairest one of all?" The mirror, unbiased and eternally truthful, did not hesitate to reveal the bitter truth. It spoke in a clear, resonant tone that left no room for deception. A bride of a prince, adorned with innocence and grace, had surpassed even the queen's renowned beauty. The words echoed in the silent room, striking her with a venom of regret and unbridled fury. Each syllable of the mirror's response fanned the flames of envy, igniting a resolve to seek out the woman whose beauty now eclipsed her own. Driven by a dark desire to reclaim her lost vanity, the queen resolved to take matters into her own twisted hands. Disguising herself in yet another cunning form, she set out towards the castle, her features masked by false charm and a veneer of devious kindness. With every step she took, the air around her seemed to chill, and a foreboding aura clung to her like a shroud. The journey to the castle was fraught with tension as she navigated winding roads and shadowed forests, her mind consumed by thoughts of betrayal and the need for retribution. The closer she drew to the site of celebration, the more her heart pounded with a mix of anticipation and fear. Arriving at the castle gates, she halted momentarily, peering through the ornate arches at the vibrant festivities beyond, her eyes narrowing as she sought the truth behind the newfound beauty of the princess who was once her stepchild. Upon entering the grand hall of the castle, the queen's eyes fell upon a scene that froze time in a paradox of beauty and horror. Among the throngs of jubilant guests, she saw the radiant figure of Snow White, resplendent in her bridal attire, her expression serene yet touched with a hint of melancholy. For a moment, the world around her seemed to vanish, and the queen stood rooted to the spot, a storm of anger and dread swirling within her. Reality and illusion mingled as she grappled with the shocking truth. The very child she had sought to destroy now stood as the princess of the realm, the object of a prince's deep and abiding love. The visual revelation struck her with the force of a thunderbolt, and her heart, once filled with cold calculation, now raced with a tumultuous blend of fury and fear. She realized that her carefully woven plans had unraveled before her eyes, leaving her adrift in a sea of remorse and envy. Seething with a mix of vengeful hatred and desperate fear, the queen could no longer hide her malice behind masks of deceit. In a moment of unbridled fury, she surged into the midst of the wedding celebration, her eyes wild and her voice laced with venom. With a flurry of wild gestures, she sought to disrupt the sacred union, her words sharp as daggers aimed at the heart of the celebration. The guests, taken aback by the sudden intrusion, murmured in astonishment and apprehension. Amid the chaos, the prince, ever vigilant and protective, recognized the unmistakable aura of danger emanating from the intruder. Turning his gaze to his new bride, he sought confirmation, and with a trembling yet honest declaration, Snow White recounted the dark history that had befallen her, the cunning schemes, the poisonous gifts, and the cruel attempts on her life. The prince's eyes blazed with a mix of sorrow and righteous indignation as he realized that the enemy of his beloved was none other than the treacherous queen herself. In a moment of decisive retribution, the prince declared that justice must be exacted upon the wicked soul who had brought so much suffering into their lives. His voice, filled with an unwavering blend of authority and sorrow, resounded through the great hall as he pronounced the queen's fate. "For your treachery and your malevolence," he declared, "you shall pay with the price of your own suffering." The edict was grim and unyielding. The queen was condemned to wear a pair of red-hot iron slippers, a symbol of the burning torment in which her treachery would be repaid. With a cruel twist of fate that bordered on the poetic, she was forced to dance in them, a dance of pain and despair that would carry her to the very edge of life itself. Every step she took seared her flesh, each movement a relentless reminder of the suffering needed to atone for her crimes against innocence. In that ruthless moment of judgment, the ancient halls of the castle bore witness to the queen's final fiery fate, a punishment as inexorable as the passage of time itself. As the final note of retribution faded into the echoes of the castle halls, a serene calm settled over the realm. The treacherous queen, now a figure of ignoble infamy, had met her deserved end, her fate sealed by the very forces of righteousness she had once sought to defy. In the wake of such dramatic justice, the atmosphere of the castle transformed into one of restored harmony. Snow White, her beauty and grace now unmarred by past sorrows, stood beside her beloved prince, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of renewed hope. The wedding ceremony resumed in a tranquil and heartfelt procession, with joy and celebration radiating from every corner of the grand hall. As music filled the air and joyous laughter mingled with gentle whispers of goodwill, the promise of a bright future enveloped them all. In that day, the bonds of love and justice triumphed, marking the beginning of a new chapter for the kingdom. In the soft aftermath of the newly celebrated union, the kingdom basked in a luminous era of hope and renewal. The long, dark chapters of treachery and sorrow had finally closed, replaced by a gentle promise of brighter days. Snow White and the prince, now united in love and commitment, walked through the flower-lined corridors of the castle, their footsteps echoing like whispers of a once-distant dream. In their eyes shone a quiet determination to rebuild a realm where kindness reigned and the shadows of hate were banished forever. As the seasons turned and the kingdom flourished under the reign of love and justice, tales of the brave princess and her devoted prince spread far and wide, inspiring minstrels, painters, and storytellers to capture their saga in song, art, and lore. The memory of the wicked queen became a cautionary tale, a somber reminder of the destructive power of envy and pride, while Snow White's gentle heart and enduring spirit came to symbolize the resilience of true beauty that lies not only in appearance but in goodness and compassion. In the courts and in the humble hearths of the people, celebrations in honor of the united lovers waxed poetic, each festival a tapestry of laughter, song, and heartfelt gratitude for the peace that had been ushered in. The echoes of their love carried on the wind, mingling with the scent of blossoming roses and the murmurs of ancient trees that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless seasons. Even as the years folded into history, the legacy of Snow White's tender courage and the prince's unwavering valor continue to illuminate the hearts of generations. The realm, now a beacon of harmony and empathy, stood testament to the power of transformation, a reminder that even in the deepest winters of the soul, the promise of spring, of rebirth and redemption, is ever near. And so, as twilight embraced the castle and the stars began to twinkle in the tranquil sky, the kingdom rested, wrapped in the gentle lullaby of its newfound serenity, its dreams woven from the threads of love, hope, and eternal grace. Under the moonlit sky, every heart in the kingdom found solace in the promise of a new dawn. The gentle murmur of contentment and the soft rustle of leaves whispered a timeless lullaby, assuring all that the darkness had finally been vanquished. Hope, like a tender bloom, emerged resiliently in every corner. Their dreams soared as the night whispered eternal promises. Sweet dreams, good night.